Hey everyone, today I'm doing a coding challenge from the great front-end website. This one's called Holy Grail, and it says that the Holy Grail layout is a famous CSS page layout that has traditionally been hard to implement. So we have this header, a nav, a main, a sidebar, and a footer like this. And what we want is the header is going to have a fixed height, but it's going to take up the whole screen. The footer has a fixed height and it takes up the whole width right here. This nav and this sidebar both have a fixed width, but then the main element as you resize the page should grow and take up the space in between them. And this is all outlined down here in the requirements. I'll go through this as I kind of build this out. And the only thing I've looked at here is I've kind of written down the colors that they used in this diagram. So as I build it, I can use the same colors and make it look the same. We're starting with just a boilerplate Vite React setup. I just have a dark mode screen on here, but really nothing else. So we're going to start from scratch and see if I can build this and get this to come together pretty quickly. So I'll start by just putting the elements in here into my app JSX. So I'm going to start with a header, and we'll say header. Then I'm going to put these three, the nav, the main, and the sidebar, into a div, which I'm going to give a class name of columns. And then we'll do nav. It says navigation. And then I'll do this main element that says main, and an aside that says sidebar. So we've got those three things, and then I'll put a footer down here that says footer. So when I look at my page here, all those are just stacking right here on top. We haven't done anything to edit them yet. And just to get the colors out of the way, we'll come in here and target each of these. And we're going to have a background color of tomato for the header. The navigation is going to have a background color of coral. Oh, and this should just say nav, not navigation. And then the main is going to have a background color of moccasin. The aside will have a background color of sandy brown, and slate gray is going to be the background color for the footer down at the bottom here. So we'll do background color of slate gray like this. Okay, so those are the colors they used in the prompt right here, just so we can match that image. And it looks like they do have black text, so all my default boilerplate is using white text for a dark mode. I'll just target the .app, that's this class name of this containing div right here, and I'll set color to black like this. Okay, so that's looking okay for our start right here. Let's take a look at the requirements. So the header has to stretch horizontally across the whole page and be 60 pixels tall. So that's pretty straightforward. By default, it's already going to stretch the whole width of the page, but just to set it explicitly to make sure we're meeting that requirement, I'll say width 100%, and then the height is going to be 60 pixels. So that's pretty easy, no problem with the header so far. To make it look a little bit more like the picture, I'm also going to do a text align of center, and that should inherit for all the elements and just move the text to the middle. Okay, so now we got to deal with the columns. So underneath the header right here, I'm going to target the class name of columns. And if you remember, I put the nav, the main, and the sidebar all inside that div. So I'm going to do display flex, and that should put those side by side. But now the issue is that they're not taking up the correct horizontal width. So let's look at what we need here. The left and the right columns both have a fixed width of 100 pixels. So that's the nav and the sidebar. So right here I can target both of those together, nav and aside, and I'll do width of 100 pixels, so that's going to be fixed. Now the main, I'm already targeting this down here. I want this to take up all the available remaining horizontal space, so I'm going to do flex grow of 1. Okay, good. So our width is taken care of for those 3 elements. Now let's look at the footer, and then we'll figure out how we get that to sit at the bottom of the page. So the footer needs to be just like the header width. We'll set it explicitly to 100%, although it's already doing that. Height 100 pixels. It's a little bit taller than the header is. And now I think the last thing that we need to solve here is getting the footer down to the bottom of the page. So my thought on that is to make the entire app component a display of flex, set flex direction to column, and then set this div that contains these 3 elements to a flex grow, so it'll take up the remaining vertical space. But I think the issue right now is that technically our the app section will only be taking up this much space on the screen. So I think I need to open that up before we actually set a flex grow on this. So just so we can see what I'm doing here, I'm going to set a background color to blue so we can see this take place. And now I'm going to set a min height to 100 VH. Yeah, so we see the difference there. Without that min height, if I comment that out, the app is only taking up this much space. When I add that, that now opens this up so that in a moment when we set the flex and then the flex grow, now this space is going to be open so this can expand. I think without that it would have just stayed in one spot and wouldn't have taken up that remaining space. Okay, so now I want to set the display flex here on the app, and of course that messes that up right now. We want flex direction to be column, and that puts that back how it was. And now the columns div, we want flex grow to be 1. And I think that pretty much takes care of it. If we shrink the page, well, here, I'll exit this here so we can look at it a little bit clearer. So as it's a little bit more full screen here, we see that the main is still taking up all this space. If I close it vertically, it adjusts. If I close it horizontally, it does what it's supposed to. So I think we've got this working to look pretty much like what they gave us in the prompt right here. So I hope that all makes sense. It looks like I was able to do this in under 10 minutes, so that's pretty good. And in an interview setting, you want to be able to do things quickly and get things to come together. If you have any thoughts or feedback for me, feel free to let me know in the comments below.